So you may or may not have noticed something different. I dyed my hair. Hello and welcome to another video. It is the end of the month. It is the first Monday of the month, and most of the time that means reading makeup. Also, can we just, before I get into it, can we talk about how these are low-key like all matching? They're kind of mostly in like blue/dark tones, and I kind of love that. So I am very happy. I did not expect to read that much this month because normally in March I kind of take a break into a slow reading month because in February I've read so much and I often get quite overwhelmed by how much I read in February. So normally in March I tend to tone things down and read a little less. That did not happen. I read 10 books this month, which is crazy. For me, 10 books is a lot of books. I almost completed the TBR. So out of the 7 books that I chose on March's TBR, I read 6 of the 7, and so I'm not mad. The Goldfinch, honestly, I think what we're probably going to do, because that's been 2 TBRs now where I've picked it and I haven't read it, I think that if it gets picked the 3rd time and I cannot make myself read it, I'm just going to unhaul it, because that will be 3 opportunities that I will have had to read it that I will not have taken, and I think honestly at some point I've just got to accept defeat. So it's still here. It's waiting for its moment, but yeah, if I don't read it the next time I pull it, we're just going to unhaul it. But anywho, so yeah, this was a really good reading month also. I had 3 5s. Basically, this was an amazing reading month. I read loads of books. Obviously, they were also all really good books. I think my lowest rating was like a 3.5, maybe a 3-star. So I'm honestly really happy with this month. Plus, I feel like this month went by really slowly. Like, I was looking at the books I read and I was like, wait, I read those this month? I thought this was last month. I'm sure though that in April it will not be the same. I'm gonna go a lot slower in April just because I have my end of year school exams in April. So I'm gonna just be a lot more busy, so I probably will not read as much next month. But who knows? I said the same thing for March and I read 10 books. So who knows? Without any further ado, grab yourself a nice cold drink or a cup of tea and let's get right into the video. Okay, so same as usual, we're going to go through this in chronological order of the most recent, no wait, not the most recent, of the first book I read in the month to the last book I read in the month. Okay, so the first book that I read this month, and this one also helped me tick off a reading goal, which was to read a classic, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, because basically I saw the movie when it came out last month and I really loved it, and so I got the book and I read it. Honestly, I prefer the movie to the book. I know a lot of people disagree, and they are very different. I would barely even compare the two. The only similarity is obviously the fact that they're the same story. Aside from that, they are definitely very different. And it was also weird because there were some lines in the book that are said at a certain point in the book, but then are said at a completely different moment in the movie, but it's the same like line, and I thought it was a bit weird, but I guess it was a choice. But I wasn't a hugest fan of the book. Maybe it's because it was a classic, but also the story was kind of horrible, and maybe because I'd gone into it having seen the movie instead of like read the book first, so I didn't expect it to be quite so horrible, because in the movie it still kind of makes out to be a love story. In the book, I don't think you can call Catherine and Heathcliff lovers. I just don't think it was that clear cut. I don't think it was that like healthy a relationship. Yeah, so I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't bad per se, I just didn't love it. I did like how you had a happy ending, like how basically you had all this like trauma that had happened in the family. They'd been passed down to the next generation, but then the next generation managed to like pull themselves through and get better. And I did kind of like that, how even if you have like a family trauma or some horrible thing that happened in your past, then your parents kind of inflicted on you as well, you can still like move past it. So I enjoyed that. That's what I took away from it. It was kind of like there's a happy ending, there's like a light over every horizon, that kind of, you know, very Disney. But it was interesting. It was, yeah, I really don't know what I think about this, and I think it's partially because it was a classic. I really don't read a lot of classics. I read like maybe 3 in my whole life, but yeah, this was a 3-star, so it wasn't bad. And I kind of felt weird reading it because I was like, objectively it's not a bad story, just the style of writing is one that I don't like. So I gave it 3 stars, where really I don't think it's like an accurate rating. I felt very iffy rating this book just because I don't think you can rate classics. I personally can't rate classics the same way I'd read books from nowadays because they're just so different. But yeah, I prefer the movie. I know that's controversial and I know I'm like the only person who thinks that, but the book wasn't for me. I'm much more a movie person. Plus the movie has Jacob Elordi. So next off, we read the first 5-star read of the month, and that was The Night and the Moth. So I haven't read One Dark Window, which is Rachel Gill's like debut series, I believe, but apparently that one's even better. But I hadn't read that, so I kind of went into this not really knowing what to expect, knowing it was going to be like gothic, but not really knowing what that meant, because I've never read a gothic novel before, so I don't necessarily know what that would mean. Still don't. This just felt like a fantasy book to me. I was absolutely blown away. I read this, I like had a 12-hour bus because I went to Hamburg with my sister, and so we took a night bus, and I basically just read this overnight. I loved it. I could not put it down. It literally had me giggling and kicking my feet in the bus. I don't know what it was, I just really liked it. I loved the way it was written. I love our main characters. I love Roderick. I love Sybil. I love their relationship, the universe, the magic system. It was definitely really unique from anything else that I had read before, and I think that's also the case with One Dark Window. From what I've heard, people say the magic system is quite unique. Bartholomew, obviously such a funny character. I feel like this was kind of written in a funny way. I miss books that are written with humour. I feel like a lot of books nowadays, they're written very seriously and they try to like appeal to a younger modern audience by having the characters say things that are sometimes a bit humorous, but the book itself isn't necessarily humorous, so it doesn't always work. But this book, at least, I felt that it did really well having like a sense of humour, and I really love that in a book. I think it makes the book so much more interesting and fun to read. Even if it's a serious book, you can have it be a really serious book and have like touches of humour here and there, and this had that, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, like I said, this was a 5-star read. I absolutely did not expect to love it as much as I did. This blew me away. I cannot wait till the next one comes out. I think it's the end of this year or early next year, but I really love this book, and I'm definitely going to be picking up One Dark Window to see if it's just as good, because apparently people say it's better. So I don't know how, because this is 5 stars, but we'll find out. Okay, then we read the latest Alix E. Harrow book, because obviously I hadn't read it yet, and I've read like every other one of her books, and I love every one of her books, but this might be my favourite Alix E. Harrow book to date. This is The Everlasting. This is a standalone. It's kind of King Arthur inspired-ish. It is so different from anything I've ever read. And I've read a lot of King Arthur inspired books, and I've read a lot of fantasy books. This was different from both of them. I absolutely love this. It somehow managed, it's only like 330 pages. Yeah, it's only like 300 pages, but it's somehow managed to fit such an expansive, beautiful story into 300 pages without it feeling rushed, with everything feeling perfectly developed. And so I got to the end and I was like, it's only 300 pages? What do you mean? So much has happened. And honestly, this was absolutely gorgeous. Alix E. Harrow always has such beautiful writing in her books. I think her descriptors are really lovely. Her character relationships are honestly what make her books so perfect, and this was definitely no exception. Also, Alix E. Harrow used to be a historian, and this one, our main character is a historian, and also history itself and who writes history, how history gets written, how history impacts our current society was such a present theme during this book, and I do think that was Alix E. Harrow was the perfect person to write this kind of book, because obviously she is a historian. I thought it was really beautiful that she was writing about a historian as a historian herself, and I feel like you could definitely tell, like I say with all her books, you can definitely tell she was a historian. The detail she goes into of like historic facts, or even the historic facts within the universe, so they're not our history, they're made up history, they are so deeply researched and thought out that you literally feel like this could be our history. But it is honestly, I think, my all-time favorite Alix E. Harrow book. This was definitely a 5-star read. It was absolutely beautiful, and I really just love things that when you look at them slightly deeper, they have like a hidden message or commentary. And this one was obviously, like I said, how the people who write history have such a huge impact on our day-to-day lives today, with how they choose to write history and who they choose to write about and what events they choose to highlight, and just how impactful that is on today's society without us even realizing it. And this was absolutely beautiful. It was amazing. This honestly might be my favorite book I've read all year. 5-star read. I love Alix E. Harrow. I cannot wait to see what she'll come out with next, because her books just keep getting better and better. Then we picked up a highly anticipated read of mine that I was reading because I want to watch the movie, and that is Project Hail Mary. I will just preface this by saying I am really type A about movie adaptations. Like, you've got to do it really well for me to like it. I really struggle with movie adaptations when I read them book first, because oftentimes, obviously, in a book there's so much more detail, there's so many more things that happen that you just cannot fit into like an average length feature film, and so a lot gets left out. And when I was reading this, I was like, there's a lot of scientific conversations, or not even conversations, just a moment where he's in his head figuring things out. I was really interested to see how that would translate into the movie. It kind of didn't. The movie was kind of like, we're gonna do the most basic scientific explanations and we're gonna skip all the rest and let you fill in the gaps. So I was a bit annoyed by that, but I did really like the movie. I thought it was nice at the end. Again, it changed quite a bit of things, and I'm really annoying about that. I really struggle with movie adaptations that I see after the book, because the book is just always so much better. So people who are like, oh, I love this thing, but they haven't read the book, it's like, no, you don't. Read the book, you're gonna love it even more. But basically all that to say that I absolutely love this book. It was a 4.75 read for me. I don't know why it wasn't 5-star. There's really no reason it wasn't 5-star. It just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. Possibly because there were a few too many moments where I was just looking at the page like, too scientific, I don't understand a thing. But I really enjoyed this. Considering this book, you basically just have 2 characters, and you do have flashbacks obviously, but you have 2 characters. Their interactions are just so perfect, and I found this was definitely a book with humour. Like, this wasn't even just a book with humour, this was a comedy. Knowing that it was Ryan Gosling before reading this book made it even better, because it meant everything that they were saying it in a Ryan Gosling way. Also, perfect coincidence, I'm wearing my I Am Knauf shirt, and we're talking about a book that Ryan Gosling was in. This was completely unintentional, but perfect coincidence. But so basically when I was reading this, I was like, this Ryan Gosling was set this way, and it's just so funny because I could picture him perfectly in the role. But I really enjoyed it. It managed to mix quite a serious topic, which is like the world ending, the possibility of like getting sent out in space, not being able to come home, and also like heavy science stuff, and then it managed to mix it with like humour and lightheartedness, and it was really heartfelt. Never thought I would fall in love with a rock spider until I read this book. If you know, you know. I absolutely love this. 4.75 stars. Like I said, the beginning of my month was off to a really good start. I do think even if you're not a big science fiction reader, I think you would enjoy this just because it's written in such a approachable tone outside of the science parts. If you're willing to accept the fact that there are going to be passages you're going to read and not understand, I do think this is for everyone, because I think it was just written in a way that was really funny and easy to read. And so I would definitely recommend picking this up, especially if you like the movie, because this is 10 times better. So actually the beginning of the month was actually quite slow, because I pretty much read like 4 books over the month, and then 5.5 books during 24 hours. That's what 24-hour reading challenges are for. They're to get through my TBR, they're to finish the books I didn't get to finish. So the first book we picked up in the 24-hour reading challenge, I finally got around to His Rivalry, and oh my god, people were not lying. This book did not disappoint. I loved it. This was a 4-star. I'm not a huge spicy book lover. I don't have a problem with it, but it's not really my thing. Like, I don't really like it. I prefer there to be more plot than spice. And this book, especially the first half, because of the plot of the book, so like it made sense to the story, but it was just a lot of spice. Like the first half was pretty much like a recap of all their sexual encounters over like 8 years, because they were enemies with benefits. So like it makes sense in the plot, and I still thought the story was really good. It just made it that I could not give this a 5-star because I was like kind of uncomfortable for the first half. But anywho, so I read this, and then I read the second book, The Long Game, I believe it's called. I loved both of these so much. The Long Game was a 5-star read for me. I almost cried at so many moments during that book, and I teared up at a few. It wasn't quite strong enough to make me cry, but these two have definitely joined my holy trinity of gays. That is Red, White and Royal Blue and Heartstopper, and now we have Heated Rivalry, Ilya and Shane. I really like this. I would say don't read this if you don't like explicit sexual content, but if you're fine with either skipping it or if you're fine with like reading that, definitely go and pick this up. This was a beautiful story. I wasn't surprised. I love this. Everyone says it's really good. Of course it is. I now need to watch the TV show because I want more. I want more. And the next book that's coming out, I think in September, is going to be their 3rd story, so I cannot wait to read that either. I'm probably at some point going to go back and read the other stories in this series, because this is 6 books of interconnected standalone, so you kind of have, I think, 2 books per person. I will definitely be reading the other ones because I really enjoyed the glimpses we got into the other couples in this story, and I really like this. It definitely is deserving of the hype. Oh, I found it also a really adult main couple, especially considering they started off as enemies with benefits. You might think that they were quite childish or immature, like a lot of couples that we read about nowadays, where like it seems that they create problems just to create problems. This was definitely not that. I felt like all their problems were definitely really valid problems. Like, they were to do with the fact that they were both closeted gay hockey players, which is a very masculine sport. They were to do with the fact that in the second book, Ilya has mental health issues, and that I thought was also dealt with really well. As like a psychologist in training, I really liked reading about that. I thought it dealt with all its topics really well, and I really would be interested to read the other stories to see if I love them as much. Okay, so next up we got into a universe that I have been really looking forward to getting into, and that definitely did not disappoint. and that is the Shadowhunters universe. I'm doing the recommended reading order from, I think, Cassandra Clare's website. I know you can also do like chronological reading order, release date reading order, but this one's kind of like a mix of the two. So the important thing is right now is that you start with these 3 books. So the first 3 books in the Mortal Instruments series, so City of Bones, City of Ashes, and City of Glass. So I read all 3 of these. I really enjoyed them. It's really interesting because a lot of the books I read are fairly recent books, like they're from the past 5 years, maybe 10 years, but these were, I believe this first one was published in like 2007. This one was published in 2007, and then the last one was published in 2009, and it's really interesting because there are some plot points that I feel like you definitely would not get in a YA fantasy series nowadays. It was really interesting from that aspect to read like a book that came out pretty much when I was born. Like this first book came out 2 years after I was born. Jesus, wow. That's crazy. These are older books than I thought. But anyway, so yeah, there was definitely like a big plot point in the book that I did know about because I've seen the TV show. So I knew most of like the main plot points. So it was interesting to see what they changed, what they kept the same, because they did change a lot. But there was one main plot point that I really struggled with. And I think if I hadn't seen the TV show and if I didn't know like what I know, try not to spoil it, but there is a high chance I would have DNF'd these. Like if I'd have gone into these blind, having read nothing else before, there is a chance I might have DNF'd them because that plot point I really did not like it at all. It made me very uncomfortable. But these 2 books are very similar to the TV show, and then this one was quite different, so that was also fun because, well, these 2, like I was reading them and pretty much nothing happened. I was like, yeah, you teach me nothing new. But this one, the setting was different. It was set in Idris, which is like the Shadowhunters country, instead of in New York, which these ones and then the entire TV show is set in, so that was different. I think the TV show is based on these 3 books, and so it will be interesting when I start going further into the universe and actually like reading new stuff, because pretty much all the major plot points that happened in these I knew that they happened. But I really enjoyed it. It was fun reading a YA fantasy series. I have been craving, ever since I was Throne of Glass, pretty much, I've been craving like a big, expansive, well developed, with so many characters and everything, a really big series basically. And this is not just a series, this is like 4 or 5 interconnected series in this huge universe that is still getting published today. I definitely had a lot of fun with it. I cannot wait to continue it. As for the ratings, wait a second, what did I rate these books? This one was a 4-star read. This second one was 3.75. The plot point really I really struggled with this one because of it. Like I really struggled. And then this one was 4.5. This was my favorite, but I do think, like I said, that's also partly to do with the fact that this was a little more different from the TV show. But yeah, I really like these. I would definitely recommend them, and I cannot wait to get into more of the universe. Okay, and then we have one more book left, so book number 10, and that is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. So this was so good. The whole month, I feel like there wasn't a single book that I disliked. There was just Wuthering Heights at the very beginning where I was kind of like unsure about, but aside from that, literally every single other book, they have been 3.5 plus stars. This has been such a good reading month. I've been really happy. I guess it makes up for last reading month, which was kind of like mid, where I don't think any of them were higher than 3.5 stars. But anywho, Blood Over Brighthaven. So this is the first book by M.L. Wang that I've ever read. I was reminded kind of Eye of Crying in the writing style, just that it's fantasy, but it's kind of like intelligent fantasy. It's academia, it's got social commentary in it, which I love me some social commentary. So I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed that our main female character, she was cocky, she was arrogant, she was angry, but then she was also like so much more than that. But also just for one, that she was a female character and she was allowed to be all those things, because a lot of your main female characters are not these things. So I really like that, and I like that the roles were almost reversed in this. Like if you take up the stereotypical gender role, so like the man is the cocky, arrogant guy who goes off to work, and then the woman is like the cleaner, the house taker, the more calm one. I liked how this kind of almost switched that. So you had our main female character, she was the academic, she was cocky, really sure of herself, she got angry at times, and you had the male main character who had a kid who was a janitor, so like a cleaning role, typically, you know, feminine role. He was a lot more calm and reserved. I really enjoyed that. I always like when you flip gender stereotypes on their head. I don't think I had time to process this because I read it in 24-hour reading challenge. So I read this and then immediately went into another book, and I don't think I had time to process this, but this plot is actually kind of like horrible, but in a really good way. Like it's horrible in that if you think about it, it's like crushing, but it's really good. It deals with basically colonialism, kind of like Babel, in a way of like these people don't even fully realize just how bad and insidious the colonialism is, and you realize over the course of the book that it's so much worse than you thought. So I really enjoyed that, and I really liked how a main male character and his daughter, who was actually his niece, but anyway, that's the whole thing, the main character and his niece, they were the only two of their people left, because they were like indigenous to the lands, and they were the only two of their tribe left. And I really like how they felt such rage at that. Like, they were sad, but they were also really angry at the fact that their tribe had been destroyed, and they weren't even like allowed to express themselves because they had to integrate with the main society. They didn't speak their own language, they didn't really have their own customs. Like, he tried to keep them alive with his niece, and I just thought it was really beautiful and really realistic. This book was filled with anger, but it was also filled with hope, and I really liked how both were shown as important to change. Societal change, like large scale change, comes from people who are both angry and yet hopeful. And I just really liked how these two things that are almost like opposites, because anger is a very like negative emotion and hope's a very positive emotion, how they were both shown as like really necessary to changing things and making the world a better place. So this was really beautiful. I really liked the ending. I love me an atypical ending, and this one was definitely not going in the way I expected, so there we go. The ending surprised me. I gave this 4.5 stars, but it just didn't quite have that 5-star feeling, but I really enjoyed this book. Well, there you have it, folks. These are the 10 books that I read this month. It was such a good reading month. I know I've said this many times throughout the video, but it was honestly just read so many good books. Like, even the ones that weren't 5-star reads were really good. I also read quite a few like books with deeper messaging, which I always enjoy. I love it when a book isn't just a book, it's also trying to get you to think about your own society and like culture. And I think that that's such an important thing in literature, is to make us kind of look around us and see things through a new light. Everyone hates on fantasy books because it's like, oh, they're just silly fantasy with dragons and fae, but actually I've read so many fantasy books that are almost a mirror to our own society, but like told through a fantasy universe. And I think they're just so important, helping people kind of like see injustice in the world that they wouldn't necessarily see, but this book has opened their eyes. And so I think reading is really important, and I think it's such a beautiful thing that books can do that. And I think in today's day and age, with the state of the world being what it is, I think it's really important that people continue reading books that help us see things that we may not have seen otherwise. But anywho, so I really enjoyed this reading month. I really enjoyed all the books that I've read. I am really happy. I'm looking forward to next month. Honestly, I've got a lot of good books also on my next month's TBR. Don't know if it'll rival this month. This month was so great. Not a single book below 3.5 stars. Yeah, there we go, guys. This is all the books I read. We're at the end of the video. I don't really have anything else to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not doing so already, don't hesitate to follow me. Yeah, this was a lot of fun, but it's the end of the video, and so with that I bid you adieu. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week, and I will see you on Friday for my next video. Until then, bye.